If you can't handle the basics, then get lost." The words sliced through the hot, clattering kitchen like a blade sharpened by stress and exhaustion. Steam rose from boiling pots, mingling with the scent of burnt bacon and tension thick in the air. Maya's voice, sharp and unapologetically direct, echoed against the tile walls. She didn't know, she couldn't have known, that the man she just tore into wasn't some fresh-faced rookie fumbling through his first day. He was Jackson Blake, 42 years old, founder and CEO of Blake's Family Bistro, a culinary empire with 63 locations across the Midwest. But today, Jackson wore no crown, only a faded name tag and a wrinkled apron. His hands, once used to signing multi-million-dollar contracts, now trembled slightly as they gripped a server's notepad. He'd gone undercover to understand why this once thriving Chicago location was crumbling. He expected to find laziness, perhaps even theft. What he didn't expect was to be dressed down by the very woman keeping the place afloat, with nothing but raw nerve and exhaustion. Maya didn't see a CEO, she saw a distraction, an obstacle. She hadn't slept properly in weeks, spending her nights curled in the backseat of her car, washing up at gas stations before shifts, and saving every dime to afford care for her father, who was slowly slipping away from her, lost in the late stages of Alzheimer's. Life had taught her that survival didn't come from hope. It came from grit, from fire, from getting things done when no one else would. Her sharp words weren't about cruelty. They were armor. Jackson watched her, stunned into silence. In her voice he heard not just command, but pain, hidden under layers of burnt coffee and clipboard slams. And something in him shifted. He had walked in expecting to fix numbers, but now he saw broken people, especially her. When he discovered the truth, how the systems had failed, how corporate neglect and managerial carelessness had turned his beloved restaurant into a ticking time bomb, he did the only thing that felt right. He shut it down, not to punish, but to rebuild. Have you ever been mistaken for less than you are, judged by appearances, dismissed because someone didn't see the war you were fighting quietly inside? That's what happened here. But sometimes, in the unlikeliest places, kindness and transformation take root. So when Maya walked into the office the next morning, only to find that the flustered new hire was in fact the man who owned the name stitched on every uniform, the silence was deafening. Her face drained of color. But in that moment, everything changed. And so began a story not about food or business, but about grace and redemption, and how sometimes the hardest people to reach are the ones who need saving the most. They were right. Jackson was sweating through his uniform before the first hour ticked by. The polyester clung to him like plastic wrap, and every movement felt like dragging a boulder uphill. As he passed Maya near the coffee station, her presence hit him like cold steel. "Table 17 needed extra napkins 5 minutes ago," she said, not even slowing. "I'm trying," Jackson murmured, awkwardly shifting the tray in his arms. "So is everyone," she snapped. "Figure it out or get out of the way." There was no malice in her voice, just survival, urgency, a woman buried under 1,000 demands. One of the servers glanced at him, not with kindness, just indifference, wrapped in exhaustion. "She's like that with everyone," the guy muttered. "Don't take it personally." But Jackson couldn't help it. The words, the tone, they pierced something deeper than pride. By the end of his shift, he had made 5 clumsy mistakes and accidentally spilled juice on a toddler's crayon drawing. His back was screaming. His feet pulsed like bruises with every step. And Maya? She hadn't so much as blinked. She had fielded a customer complaint, repaired a sputtering espresso machine, corrected 2 orders, managed a surprise delivery, and done it all with the calm ferocity of someone walking a tightrope over fire. Jackson wiped his hands on his apron, watching her. Something didn't add up. The restaurant felt brittle, like a glass building trembling before collapse, and somehow, the only thing holding it together was her. But then, why was everyone so afraid of the glue? By 9:30 a.m., Jackson had already made 4 separate trips to the wrong table. His notes looked like a 5-year-old had scribbled them during a sugar crash. When a customer asked if the pancakes were gluten-free, he froze. No clue, no training. He found an outdated manager's manual buried under a mountain of dusty menus near the break room. It might as well have been written in Morse code. Maya breezed past again. "Table 14 is still waiting on their check," she said, her voice curt, eyes already on her next task. "Excellent question. I just gave it to," Jackson began. "And 17 needed napkins 10 minutes ago." He shut his mouth. Moments later, he realized he'd handed table 14 the wrong ticket. Flustered, he tried to fix it but forgot the order number. The line at the register stacked like dominoes. A customer's voice rang out. "Where's the manager?" He scanned the room. No Derek, no Vanessa. Just Maya, moving like a ghost in combat boots, doing the job of 3 people and never stopping. When he ran to grab napkins, he came back to find her already at table 17, placing them down herself, face tight with frustration. As she brushed past, she growled, "Trying to get me fired with you?" "I'm sorry," Jackson said quickly. "No one trained me. I'm doing my best." But she didn't stop. Didn't answer. Moments later, a customer waved him down. "My eggs are cold." Jackson nodded and rushed to the kitchen. He slipped slightly on a patch of water near the soda machine. No sign, no warning. No one had mopped. He grabbed a new plate and returned, hoping it would be enough. The customer didn't thank him, and he didn't blame them. By noon, Jackson had stopped trying to catch up. He'd just obeyed the rhythm of the chaos. Order, run, bus, apologize, repeat. His shirt was soaked, his notepad stained with iced tea, his body aching. Near the kitchen entrance, he tried to balance a full tray. 3 waters, 2 coffees, and a Bloody Mary. The tray wobbled, water spilled, glass clinked, coffee splashed across his sleeve. The dining room paused for half a breath. Then Maya was there. Her voice didn't rise. It cut. "Are you trying to get someone injured?" "I'm sorry," Jackson stammered. I don't care." She shoved a rag into his hands. "Clean it up. We don't have time for excuses or incompetence." He dropped to his knees, scrubbing quickly. Behind him, her voice dropped to a server, low but pointed. "3rd useless hire this month." That stung. But then, just for a second, he saw it. Something behind her voice. Not rage, not arrogance. Something more fragile. Despair. Weariness carved into bone. And then, it vanished. She turned, spine straight, mask in place. Jackson stood slowly. Nearby, 2 cooks exchanged a glance. "Maya's on a rampage today," one whispered. "She's on a rampage every day," the other replied. They didn't sound annoyed, just resigned. That afternoon, Jackson watched her between tables, watched the strange way this place worked. She barked yes, but everyone listened. When she corrected plating, no one argued. Orders flew out like clockwork. Customers stayed smiling. She was the storm and the anchor. At 12:45, Derek arrived. Slicked hair, designer watch, cologne thick enough to gag a fry cook. He made a slow lap of the dining room, grinning at regulars, never touched a table, never greeted a staff member, and the energy changed. Where Maya brought tension, Derek brought silence. People vanished behind their tasks, no eye rolls, just quiet. Discomfort. Jackson watched Derek laugh with a customer for 5 minutes while tickets piled in the kitchen. Maya swept past with 2 plates. Our fearless leader graces us with his presence, she muttered. At 1:10 p.m., Jackson was wiping down a booth when he heard a new hostess, April, asking an older waitress, "Why don't we seat from front to back?" Joyce, her name tag barely hanging on, shrugged. "Because Maya said not to." And Maya's usually right. April blinked. "But Derek's the manager, right?" Joyce snorted. "Technically." She turned back to rolling silverware. Jackson leaned against the counter, letting the truth settle in his bones. Maya wasn't just tired. She wasn't just strict. She was running the whole place, alone. And somewhere along the way, something or someone had turned her into a fortress. He needed to know what. Despite her final words yesterday, Jackson came back the next morning. Earlier this time. He arrived before sunrise, hoping to see the real rhythm beneath the noise. This time, he brought something, coffee. Not a grand gesture, just cups for the kitchen crew, a small kindness, most accepted with quiet surprise. Only Maya refused. She gave him a hard look, then arched a brow. "Trying to buy friends?" "Just being collegial," Jackson replied softly. "We're all on the same team, right?" She let out a sharp laugh. "Team? That's funny." And walked off. Throughout the morning, Jackson stayed in the background. He didn't question, didn't push. He watched. And what he saw confirmed what he already knew. Maya was the manager, the protector, the glue. She fixed orders, ran inventory, answered supplier calls, helped a crying server in the break room, even adjusted the espresso machine without pausing. Meanwhile, Derek and Vanessa, the ones with the titles, barely moved. They were physically present but emotionally vacant. Derek leaned on counters and smiled. Vanessa answered a few calls, browsed her phone. But Maya? Maya carried the weight of everyone's apathy, and Jackson wasn't sure how much longer she could hold it. Vanessa floated through the restaurant like a shadow, with a tablet she rarely used and a black notebook she guarded like it held her reputation. Occasionally she jotted something down, but never stepped in, not even when things were clearly unraveling. No one asked her for help, not even Maya, because Maya had long learned the hardest truth in fast-paced, underpaid work. Help wasn't coming. Around noon, Jackson finally got a brief breather near the dish pit. He leaned in toward Carlos, the dishwasher, a man with quiet eyes and streaks of gray in his beard. "Has she always carried this much weight?" Jackson asked in a low voice. Carlos looked around, then nodded solemnly. "Maya's been keeping this place from falling apart for years," he murmured. "Derek takes the credit, and the bonuses." Jackson said nothing, but the words clung to his skin like sweat. They didn't just sting, they stayed. At 12:45, Derek strolled out of the office like a man stepping onto a red carpet. He adjusted his sleek watch, straightened his collar, and made his round. Not to check on guests or help his team, but to be seen. When young Brooke, the newest hostess, asked a genuine question about seating flow, he cut her off mid-sentence. "Ask Maya," he said, already walking away. Jackson watched it all from the server station, polishing silverware. A customer nearby had sent back a steak rare instead of medium well. Derek swooped in, grinning. He offered a new entree and a free dessert, then vanished without a word to the kitchen. It was Maya again who faced the fallout. She calmed the chef, got the new steak started, and returned to the table with a sincere apology that wasn't hers to make. "Third comp today," the kitchen manager grumbled. "We're way over food cost." "I know," Maya said, her voice tight. "Just get it out. I'll deal with him later." Watching her, something shifted in Jackson's heart. Maya still barked, still snapped when overwhelmed, but behind it he saw something else. Competence, so sharp it could cut glass. loyalty buried in the exhaustion. She wasn't power-hungry. She was simply trying to keep everything from collapsing. Alone. That night, Jackson stayed late to help close. The staff drained out quickly. Derek and Vanessa had been ghosts since the dinner rush died. While wiping down a booth, Jackson saw a faint light glowing from the break room. Curious, he peeked in. There sat Maya, slouched in a plastic chair, arms limp, spine curled forward. Her hand held a faded photograph. For the first time, her body looked as exhausted as her eyes always had. He stepped closer, but a floorboard creaked beneath him. Maya looked up sharply. The mask snapped back on. "What are you still doing here?" she asked, slipping the photo into her coat. "Helping close," he said. "You looked tired earlier." She gave a brittle laugh. "Tired's my default setting." Before he could respond, her phone buzzed. She looked down, and everything in her face changed. The walls dropped. Concern flooded in. "I have to take this," she said, stepping out. Jackson didn't intend to eavesdrop, but in the stillness of the closed restaurant, her words floated through. "Yes, I'm his daughter. How bad was the episode this time?" "No. Don't call an ambulance. I can afford that. I'll be there in 20. She ended the call. For a second, just one, she placed her palms over her eyes. It was a small gesture, but raw and real. When she turned and saw him still there, she froze. "Family emergency?" Jackson asked gently. Something in his voice must have reached her. She nodded. "My dad, late-stage Alzheimer's. The night nurse bailed. He had a bad episode." "I'm sorry, that must be incredibly hard." Her fingers tugged the hem of her apron. "It is what it is. Can I help?" That question stopped her. She blinked. "Unless you can magically make rent cheaper or nursing care affordable, no." She tried to smile. It came out crooked. "Some of us aren't just working for pocket change." As she passed the bread station, she slipped a dinner roll into a napkin. Jackson saw it. She knew he saw it. Her jaw clenched. "Judge all you want. I haven't had time to grocery shop." "I wasn't judging," he said softly. She sighed. The fire faded. Weariness took its place. "Sorry about earlier. The get lost thing. It's been a rough month." She paused. "Rough year." Then, with a tired chuckle, "Years, actually." Jackson followed her out into the parking lot. She walked toward a battered sedan. The back seat was crammed with blankets. A duffel bag sat on the passenger seat. "You live far?" Maya hesitated. "I'm between places." He said nothing. She continued. "My dad's care facility eats my whole paycheck. This is temporary." "How long has it been temporary?" 3 months, she said, eyes down. "Sometimes I crash at a friend's." In that moment, Jackson saw her completely, not as the gruff shift lead, not as the irritable trainer, but as a woman trapped in a maze of hard choices, holding together an entire world no one else seemed to see. She glanced at her watch. "I've got to go." As she pulled into the dark, Jackson stayed rooted on the sidewalk. What he thought was a staffing problem was something far deeper, a rot hidden beneath polished menus and smiling managers. And Maya's story? It wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. That night, Jackson didn't sleep. The image of her slipping that roll into a napkin wasn't shameful. It wasn't even surprising. It was just real. A quiet act of survival that moved him more than any business metric ever had. By 3 a.m. he was still awake, staring at his laptop. By dawn he started making calls, to operations, to compliance, to the CFO. He didn't tell them why. He just asked for access. Security footage, financial reports, digital logs. At 6 a.m. he was back at the restaurant, but not through the kitchen. This time, he used a master key, a forgotten one he hadn't touched in years. It unlocked a narrow hallway and a dusty back office housing the old security system. He locked in. The cameras had been feeding footage to corporate servers this whole time. It just took someone to finally watch. He started with the last 30 days, and what he saw boiled his blood. Derek was skimming small amounts steadily. Cash tips slipped into his pockets, register drawers corrected with ink. Jackson watched him in one video take a full envelope from the safe and slide it into his gym bag. Vanessa was in it too, not as direct but just as guilty. She doctored reports, inflated comps, and coached the hostesses on what not to say during audits. But the most damning footage? It was Maya, after hours. Alone, mopping behind the line, restocking the pantry, fixing the espresso machine. Once, she counted her tips and noticed the busser's take was short. She slipped in $10 extra. No one saw. No one knew. Jackson leaned back in the creaky office chair. The truth hit him like a punch. This wasn't poor management. This was sabotage. And the person carrying it all was the one they blamed. He opened the digital complaint logs, reviewed every case. Each one signed with Derek's name, each one shifting blame, especially to Maya. But shifting blame to Maya and sentiment to Maya. One guest claimed she ignored a gluten-free request, but the camera showed her going over the allergen binder with care. Another complaint said she delayed food, but footage revealed her pleading with the kitchen while Derek flirted with a guest at the pass. It wasn't neglect. It was a setup. The office door creaked open. Carlos stepped in, confused. "Jackson, what are you doing back here?" Jackson stood slowly. "I need to ask you something," he said, "and I need the truth." Carlos crossed his arms. He was ready. Carlos stared at him, brows furrowed. "How long have you worked here?" 8 years, he said without hesitation. "And how long has Maya been covering for everyone else's mistakes?" Carlos didn't pause. "Since the day Derek took over." His voice dropped, laced with quiet frustration. "She's been carrying all of us, and him. Derek takes the credit, and the bonuses." Jackson took a breath. He knew the answer before he asked, but he asked anyway. "Who am I to you?" Carlos squinted, reading Jackson now for real. Jackson extended his hand. "Jackson Hayes, CEO." Carlos blinked once, then, to Jackson's surprise, burst out laughing. "No way! The undercover boss thing? That's real?" Jackson nodded. "I'd appreciate it if you kept it quiet. I'm still collecting the full story." Carlos smirked. "Maya's gonna faint." But Jackson's voice turned somber. "Tell me the truth about her." Carlos leaned on the edge of the desk, expression hardening with respect. "She's the best manager this place never had," he said, ticking off on his fingers. "She covers shifts, handles deliveries, fixes every mess, trains people even when they don't deserve it. She doesn't take breaks, she doesn't complain." He paused. "She reported Derek 3 times. Health code stuff, inventory fraud. Nothing happened. Nothing changed." Jackson's stomach twisted. Carlos shook his head. "She won't quit. She can't. She needs the job for her dad, but she's running on fumes." Jackson turned toward the monitor where Maya appeared in the grainy frame, moving like clockwork. "She didn't know she was being watched. That's why it mattered. She's the only reason this place hasn't gone up in smoke," Carlos finished quietly. In that small, dusty room, Jackson realized the truth. This wasn't about operations or food service. It was about the quiet endurance of a woman keeping a broken world from falling apart. Derek wasn't just incompetent. He was predatory. He'd let it all fail, blame Maya, and collect the pieces. But not anymore. Jackson locked the door behind him, heart pounding. Everything was in place. The next 24 hours would change everything. By dawn, Jackson was no longer the humble trainee. The polyester was gone. He stepped into his charcoal gray suit, leather shoes polished like glass. This time, he wasn't pretending. At 8:30 sharp, he arrived at the North Side location, not alone. Behind him stood his head of operations, corporate legal counsel, and 2 security officers. They walked in together 15 minutes before opening. Staff rose. A line cook paused mid-chop. A server dropped a tray of silverware. Derek emerged, grinning like he owned the room. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" he asked, voice light, fake charm oozing. Jackson stepped forward. "Derek Porter?" "Yes," Derek said, blinking. "Jackson Hayes, CEO of Blake's Family Bistro." The smile dropped like a stone. Derek turned pale. His eyes flicked to the trainee uniform still hanging in the back hallway. "Mr. Hayes, this is, if we had known." "That was the point," Jackson said coldly. He turned to the stunned staff. "For those who haven't figured it out, I've been working undercover this week." A collective gasp. Lily covered her mouth. Carlos just nodded, grinning. Jackson raised his voice. "I have several announcements. Please listen carefully." He paused. "This location will temporarily close for renovations and internal restructuring." A whisper swept the room. The hostess murmured, "Are we all getting laid off?" Jackson raised his hand. "All hourly staff will receive full pay during the closure." A breath of relief. But then, his tone changed. "All staff except management." Derek's smile shattered. "Sir, surely we can discuss." "No." Jackson's voice was steel. "Derek Porter, Vanessa Mercer, you are both terminated, effective immediately." Vanessa froze at the office door. "On what grounds?" Jackson nodded to his lawyer. 2 thick folders were handed over. "Embezzlement, forged records, health violations, employee harassment," Jackson listed. "Shall I continue?" Neither of them spoke. "Security will escort you. If either of you access company systems after today, you'll face criminal charges." Derek turned bright red. "This is outrageous." "We have everything on camera," Jackson replied calmly. "Every drawer you skimmed, every edited report, every moment you plotted to set up Maya as your fall girl." The room went dead silent. Derek looked around, hoping for someone to defend him. He found no one. Vanessa grabbed his arm. "Let's go." Carlos leaned toward Lily. "Told you it was coming." Jackson turned to the rest of the room. "Everyone else, please meet me in the main dining area in 15 minutes. We have some important changes to discuss." The staff dispersed slowly, whispering, processing. But someone was missing. "Maya?" Jackson asked. Carlos checked his phone. "She called in. Her dad had a bad night." Jackson nodded. Perfect timing. 15 minutes later, the staff was gathered. No customers, no clattering pans, just hushed anticipation. Then the front door opened. Maya stepped in. Her hair pulled back, her eyes tired, body tense. She stopped dead when she saw the entire team, and Jackson, now in a suit. She scanned the room. No Derek, no Vanessa. "What's going on?" she asked. "Staff meeting," Carlos said gently. "You'll want to catch up." She approached slowly, eyes on Jackson. "You're not a trainee," she said flatly. "No," Jackson replied. "Jackson Hayes, CEO." Her jaw tightened. "So? You were spying on us." "I was trying to understand why one of our top locations was falling apart," he answered. and I found my answer. Her arms crossed. So, you're shutting us down. Actually, he said, Derek and Vanessa are both fired. This location is closing temporarily, but only for renovations. She blinked, guarded. All hourly staff are being paid during the shutdown. She scoffed. And after the remodel, new managers, same circus, new clowns. Ends depends, Jackson said, voice quiet, on whether the right person is willing to lead. For the first time, she didn't fire back. You don't mean, she started. I do. He placed a folder on the table. Formal offer. General manager, full salary, health benefits, flexible schedule, enough to support your father's care. She picked up the folder, hands trembling, her breath caught when she saw the number. This has to be a mistake. No, Jackson said. The mistake was not recognizing your worth sooner. Around her, the staff smiled. Carlos gave her a nod. Lily whispered, "Say yes." Maya's shoulders sagged, the weight slipping just for a moment. A tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it quickly. When would you do this? She asked. Jackson smiled. Because you didn't just keep this place alive, Maya. You made it matter. And it's time someone finally showed up for you. Hated you? Maya asked softly. Jackson replied without hesitation, his voice low but firm. Because you were right to be angry. The system failed you. I failed you. But that ends now. For a beat, she didn't move. Then, like light breaking through a storm, her lips lifted into a smile. Real, unguarded, full of something long buried. Hope. Where do we start? She asked. What followed didn't feel like a corporate announcement. Jackson didn't stand behind a podium. He didn't deliver rehearsed lines or rattle off metrics. Instead, he sat at the same table as everyone else. Eye level, human. He spoke plainly, with the kind of honesty that couldn't be faked. He walked them through everything, the surveillance footage, the embezzlement, the false complaints filed under Maya's name. As he spoke, the air in the room shifted, eyes widened, jaws clenched, but no one interrupted. Not a single person looked away. When Jackson finished, he turned to Maya. This location doesn't need to be rescued from the outside, he said quietly. It needs to be recognized for the leadership it already has. He placed a pen next to the folder, but Maya didn't touch it. Her voice was small, disbelieving. I'm just a waitress. No, Jackson said. You're the backbone of this place. He wasn't trying to impress the room, he was just telling the truth. You've trained half the staff, managed crises, balanced chaos, and you did it all while being ignored, undermined, underpaid. But they follow your lead, not Derek's, not Vanessa's. He pointed to the folder again. This is a formal offer, General Manager, starting now. Maya opened the folder slowly. Her hands were steady, but her eyes betrayed her shock. When she saw the number listed beside annual salary, her breath caught. This can't be right. It's not a favor, Jackson said gently. It's overdue. Still staring at the offer, Maya whispered. What's the catch? No catch. Flexible hours? Yes. Health coverage? Full, and it includes your father's care plan. That stopped her. For a second, words failed her. From the back, Carlos whispered, Say yes already. Lily giggled. You earned it, Maya. Maya exhaled, long and shaky. Then, almost like a reflex, she said it. Okay. He looked closer. Applause broke out, not loud or performative, but genuine. Still, she didn't bask in it. She closed the folder and hugged it to her chest, unsure what came next. Then, quietly, she asked, What? Jackson met her gaze, steady. Because you never stopped showing up, even when no one showed up for you. That afternoon, as the team held shut down for renovations, Maya stayed behind. She and Jackson walked the restaurant floor in silence. No customers, no clatter, just sunlight dusting the surfaces of a space waiting to be reborn. "We're redesigning the back," Jackson said, nodding toward the storage room. "I want your input." Maya blinked. "I've never drawn a blueprint." "You've run this place with no blueprint. I think you'll manage." She smiled, just for a moment before slipping behind the counter. Her fingers grazed the POS screen, lingering there. "Feels strange," she said, "being seen." Jackson nodded. "I'm sorry it took this long." "Why didn't anyone listen when I reported them?" she asked, more curious than angry now. Jackson's voice lowered. "Because I built a system that filtered too much. Complaints got diluted. Some were ignored. That's on me." "People got hurt?" "I know." Silence followed. Not awkward, just full of things that didn't need to be said. "Thanks," Maya added suddenly, "for not storming in here shouting." "I wanted to," Jackson said, smirking. She laughed, a real warm laugh. "That first day, I told you to get lost. And I almost did." She looked around. "Guess it's good you didn't." Later, as she grabbed her coat and stepped toward the door, she turned. "I don't know what kind of GM I'll be. I've never had the title." "You've had the responsibility," Jackson said. "And that's harder." She nodded, tired but clear-eyed. At the door, she paused again. "I'll make it count." He didn't answer with a speech, just nodded and watched her disappear into the city. For the first time in weeks, he felt this shift. Something real, something lasting. 3 months later, the north side location of Blake's Family Bistro was unrecognizable, not because of paint or floor tiles, but because it breathed differently. Jackson returned one rainy Thursday. No team, no press, just a dark coat, quiet eyes, and a curiosity to see it for himself. "Just a seat at the bar," he told the hostess. She nodded. "Miss Carter said you might visit." He said nothing, wanting to see it for what it really was. From the bar, he observed, servers moved with quiet confidence. Orders came out on time. Guests laughed and lingered. In the middle of it all, Maya appeared. She was different, taller somehow, shoulders squared, movements assured but gentle. She stopped at a family table and pulled a tiny cupcake from behind her back. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she said, placing it in front of a wide-eyed girl. The child beamed. So did her parents. "She does that for every kid," the bartender whispered. "They keep coming back." Jackson smiled. Maya hadn't seen him yet. She moved through the room like someone who belonged, not out of obligation, but by design. When she finally spotted him, her face lit up. She crossed the room in seconds. "Mr. Hayes," she began, then caught herself. "Sorry, Jackson, too formal?" He laughed. "Not at all, Ms. Carter." They both smiled, and the restaurant, once teetering on collapse, now felt like home. "You already sounded impressed," Jackson teased. Maya let out a real laugh. Light, easy, the kind that lives in your chest long after it leaves your lips. "That's because I am." "Will you give me a tour?" he asked. "I'd love to." They moved through the kitchen first, no longer a war zone but a symphony of order. New line stations gleamed, zones were clearly labeled, the floors immaculate. Every detail spoke of care, of vision. "Tony," she said, nodding to the former line cook, now wearing a chef's coat, "is our executive chef." Tony gave a small nod mid-flip at the grill, not missing a beat. "We use your suggestion for energy-saving fryers," Maya added. "Cut our utility bill by 30%. And now, inventory reviews happen every Thursday. On the dot." She gestured to a mounted tablet near the pantry. "Cloud synced. I can monitor waste in real time. Jackson raised a brow, impressed. But Maya wasn't done. She led him into the back office, once Derek's fortress of ego. Now it was warm, functional, and deeply personal. The walls held framed team photos, training certificates, and a shelf of books on leadership and mental health. On the desk was a worn photograph of her father. "He's doing better," she said softly, catching Jackson's glance. "New meds, the health insurance changed everything." He nodded, heart heavy with unspoken understanding. "Still living in your car?" Maya chuckled. A warm, open sound. "Nope, got a little place, 5 minutes from here." She tapped her temple. "And I started taking online business courses, trying to match the title, trying to understand the big picture." "You already do," Jackson said. They made their way back out front. As they passed the hostess stand, Jackson paused. A small plaque had been mounted beside it. He read aloud, "Success isn't just what you accomplish, but who you lift up along the way." He turned to her. "New company motto." Maya shook her head. "Just a reminder." "And for who?" She glanced back toward the kitchen. "For me. For them." He looked around. The place hummed like a living, breathing heart. Guests smiled. Servers moved like they belonged. No strain, no panic, just rhythm. "I like it," Jackson said. "Might use it company-wide, with your permission." "You're the CEO," she said. "You're the reason this works." He smiled faintly. "No, you are." Just then, a server flagged her down. "A minor issue at table 9. Maya moved quickly but calmly. In under a minute, she smoothed it all over. Customer happy, server reassured. She returned with the same easy grace. "I should head out," Jackson said. She walked him to the door. "Next time, give me a heads up." She smiled. "I'll have the kitchen prepare something special." "I like seeing things as they really are," he replied. As he turned to leave, he noticed something silver on her lapel, the original Blake's Family Bistro pin. "My father gave me that," he said, surprised. "He visited last month," she replied. "Said he wanted to see the store people kept talking about." Jackson's face softened, nostalgic. "What did he think?" He said. It reminded him of why he started all this. She stood taller, not with ego, but with earned dignity. "That's what I'm trying to build here," she added. "Not just a restaurant, a place that matters." He stepped outside. The rain was picking up now, soft and persistent. Through the glass, he saw her again, already back in motion. She answered a server with a smile, waved at a customer by name. This wasn't just a restaurant saved from failure. It was a soul restored, a culture reborn. Jackson exhaled as the rain tapped his shoulders. For the first time in years, he felt not just proud of what they had built, but of who they had chosen to lift. The following week, a quiet email went out to every Blake's Family Bistro location. No bold graphics, no fanfare. Subject line: "New training standards, effective immediately." Attached was a 2-page memo. 2 weeks of shadowing for all new hires. Enforced health code reviews. Weekly mental health check-ins. At the top, one line in bold font: "The Maya Protocol." No explanation, no photo. But soon, everyone would know exactly what it meant. Back in Chicago, the tempo had changed. Shift changes were seamless. Conflicts didn't fester. They surfaced, got handled, and passed. Maya still worked long hours, but not because she was afraid, because she had purpose. A new wall calendar now hung in the break room, labeled with colored markers: "Team wins." Each week, a new note. "Tony taught me a 6-minute scramble." "Carlos covered for me when my grandma passed." "Lily remembered my son's allergy." "We didn't just survive this week, we crushed it." On a crisp Tuesday morning, Jackson stopped by again. No clipboard, no inspection, just curiosity. Maya met him at the door with a coffee already in hand. Hazel nodded. "No sugar," she said. "Still, your go-to?" He blinked. "I never said that out loud." "You didn't have to," she smiled. "We pay attention around here." She guided him through the restaurant. Everything breathed, alive, aligned. He stopped by a photo wall. Staff parties, silly Polaroids, baby pictures, a crayon drawing that read, "Best waitress ever, Miss M." "I didn't ask them to make it," she said. "They just did." He didn't answer, just smiled. Later, she handed him a black notebook. "Worn, bent, used. Started this when I was barely surviving," she said. "I wrote down anything that felt human." She flipped to a page. "Check on Tony's back pain. Order more peppermint tea. Carlos likes it when he's anxious. Lily works better when someone says thank you." "These aren't policies," Jackson said, flipping through the pages. "They're reminders," Maya replied, "that this was always more than food. It's people, trying to stay afloat." As the dinner rush swelled, Jackson watched her at the expo line. A server fumbled 2 plates, another caught them. No panic, no shame. Maya gave a small nod. Effortless, on the surface, but Jackson knew what it took to build that kind of culture. Their eyes met. She nodded once. He nodded back. As he stood to leave, Maya walked him to the door. Rain misted the sidewalk. City lights shimmered through the droplets. "I hope you know," Jackson said. "You're doing more than anyone ever asked." She smiled softly. "I'm doing what someone once didn't. I'm a dread." He raised an eyebrow. "Care?" She shook her head. "Believe." He stepped outside. She didn't wave. He didn't look back. But both knew. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning. Post-credit scene. Full circle. The restaurant was nearly empty. Chairs stacked. Jazz low. Dishes clinking gently in the back. A young new hire, barely 19, nervously wiped down a table. Focused. Awkward. He knocked over a glass. It teetered on the edge. Maya saw it. She didn't bark. Didn't rush. She walked over calmly, placed a gentle hand on his shoulder and whispered, "Keep your hand steady. You're okay." He nodded, still embarrassed. She smiled. Not forced. Not performative. Real. The kind of smile she once needed and never got. Now she was the one giving it away. And that changed everything. Before you go, remember this. Sometimes the strongest people aren't the loudest. They're the ones quietly holding everything together, hoping someone will finally see them. Have you ever been that person? Have you ever seen that person? If Maya's story moved you, share it. Because being seen can change everything.